everybody, I am Sandeep Gupta and this is lecture number 3 of the C programming series. In today's lecture, we are going to study C fundamentals. Pay good attention to this lecture because whatever you are going to study in today's lecture will be useful in each and every lecture henceforth. The first fundamental concept of C programming language is the concept of variable. Now, what is a variable? A variable is a program element whose value can keep on changing. I hope you have used variables in algebra. So similarly, you can use variables in C language also. If you take example of this statement, in this statement A and B are variables and 98 is a constant. So the value of A and B can keep on changing throughout the execution of the program. Now, let's take example of these two statements. Here onwards, many a times you will see statements like int sum, float area. Now, whenever you see a statement like this, what you are doing is you are telling the compiler to create a variable sum which can store integer. You are telling the compiler to create a variable area which can store floating point values. We'll study these two statements in detail in the topic of declaration. For time being, I want you to understand one thing. Here onwards, numbers like 28, 56, 249, such numbers are called integers. And numbers like 2.8, 5.6, 24.9 are called float or real numbers. So numbers which have a decimal point will be called real numbers or float. You will not call them decimal numbers in programming. Anyway, so in this statement you are trying to create a variable sum and here you are trying to create a variable area. So whenever you do programming, in a program you will have to use variables to store some intermediate values or some results. Now, what is an array? We have an entire chapter on array where we study array in great detail, but let's just understand a definition of an array. I hope you understand a variable like sum can store only one value at one point of time. So a normal variable can store only one value at a given point of time. An array is also a variable, but an array can store multiple values at the same time. So now you know what is a variable, what is an array. Let's move on to the next topic, identifier. Pay good attention because normally students find this confusing, although it is simple. Now, when you do programming, when you write a program, you will be the programmer. And as a programmer, you will have to create many things in your program. So, you will have to use a variable, you will have to use an array, a function, a structure and so on. Right now, you may not know what is an array, function, structure, so that's okay. There is only one thing which you should know and that is, as a programmer, you will have to give some name to each of them. I repeat, you will have to give some name to a variable, to an array, to a function and so on. Whenever you give a name to any program element, that name is called identifier. I repeat, whenever you give a name to anybody in the program, that name which you have given is called an identifier. So, can you see any identifier on this board? That's true. Sum and area are identifiers. If you still don't understand what I am saying, let's consider an example. Instead of writing int sum over here, is it okay if I write int xyz? Yes, definitely okay. If I write int xyz, I'll be creating a variable called xyz. Now, who has chosen this name xyz? It is me who decides the name of the variable to be xyz. So any name which I will give in the program, which you will give in the program, that name is called identifier. I hope you have realized that every variable is an identifier, but the vice versa is not true. Every identifier is not a variable. Why? Because an identifier can be a variable, can be an array, can be a function, can be a structure, anything. Now let's understand what is a keyword. A keyword is a reserved word having a predefined meaning. Now what does this predefined mean? Predefined means that a compiler already knows in advance the meaning of the keyword. For example, over here, int is a keyword, float is a keyword. When we write this statement, the compiler knows that we need a variable xyz which should store integers. So compiler knows int stands for integer. When we write this statement, the compiler knows that we need a variable area which can store floating point numbers. So the compiler knows that float stands for real numbers. In other words, the meaning of the keyword is already known to the compiler, and that's why we say they are predefined words. Moreover, keywords are reserved words. Reserved means that you cannot use a keyword for any purpose except the one for which it is designated. So int must be used for creating integers. Float must be used for creating real numbers. There are approximately 32 keywords in C which we'll study as we move on in the syllabus. One very important rule is that a keyword must be given in lowercase. So if I write a statement like int sum, the compiler will report an error because in C language there is no keyword int starting with capital I. Now that you know what is a keyword, let's go back to identifier and let's study the rules of naming an identifier. I repeat, rules of naming an identifier. See, what happens is you can choose any name as an identifier. So instead of writing xyz, I can write sum. Instead of writing area, I can write triangle. The programmer can choose any name, whatever he wants. But while choosing a name, you have to follow certain rules which are decided by the compiler. So one by one, let's understand these rules. An identifier can contain only letters, digits and underscore. When I say letters, I mean alphabets A to Z in uppercase, lowercase. Digit means 0 to 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and the underscore. So an identifier can contain letter, digit, underscore. So if I have an identifier, if I write something like A @2, what do you think? Is this valid or invalid? Invalid, because @ is not allowed in an identifier. Rule number 2. An identifier cannot start with a digit, although it can start with underscore or letter. So, if I have something like this, underscore area, what do you think? Is this valid or invalid? Valid, but it will be invalid if it is something like this. Rule number 3. A keyword cannot be used as an identifier. So, if I write a statement like this, float space int. By writing this statement, what I am doing is, I am trying to create an identifier called int, which is not allowed because int is already a keyword. Rule number 4 is actually not a rule, it is some extra information which is given to you. It says, in identifiers, uppercase and lowercase are not equivalent. What this means is, let's say I write float area, and then I write float area. The compiler will consider these two as different identifiers because this is in uppercase, this is in lowercase. So these were the rules of naming an identifier. Let's study data types in C. The first thing which you need to understand is the meaning of the word data type. Now whenever you do a C program, in that C program you will use many values, many data items, and every value can be put in some particular category. So a data type is nothing but category of data, group of data. If you still don't understand this, let's take this simple example. Now you have some data in front of you, and let's say you are being told to put this data into two appropriate categories. So what those two categories would be? Those two categories would be the category of integers 24, 28, 63 and the category of real numbers, that is 4.96, 28.67, 5.8. So what you did over here is you have grouped the data, you have put the data into two categories, and every category is called data type. That way we have many data types in C language. Data type is a very important topic because in every program you will have to use data types of C. Data types are divided into two main categories: user defined data type and built-in data type. We will be studying user defined data type in the chapter of structures. So right now let's concentrate on built-in data type. Now built-in data types are again divided into two categories: basic data types and other data types. We have 4 basic data types and we have 7 other data types. With the help of this table, we'll understand all the built-in data types in C. Before I start, let also understand one thing, that built-in data types are sometimes also called scalar data types in C. The first built-in data type and the most frequently used built-in data type is called int, which stands for integer. Instead of writing int, you can also write signed int. Why can you write the word signed? I'll tell you after some time. Now, this is the range of integer minus 32768 to plus 32767, and this is the memory requirement of integer. Now, what exactly do you mean by this particular range? So, let's take an example. Let's say I write a statement int sum. Now, if I write a statement like this, we are requesting the compiler to create a variable sum which can store integers. Now, sum can store any value between minus 32768 to plus 32767. So this becomes the range of integer. What is the meaning of memory requirement? Very simple. Once we have created a variable sum, you can give any value to variable sum. So let's say I give the value 50 to variable sum. Now what the compiler will do is, the compiler will store this value 50 in the computer memory. Within the computer memory, this value will occupy 2 bytes because that is the memory requirement of integer. So that was the data type int, integer for you. The next data type is called float, and float can store real numbers. Real numbers are those numbers which can have a decimal point or an exponent. Now this is the range of float, minus 3.4 e plus 38 to plus 3.4 e plus 38. In case you are wondering what is that e over there stands for exponent, and it is actually this, minus 3.4 into 10 raised to plus 38. So when you write a program, you cannot write 10 raised to plus 38 and that's why this portion is written as E plus 38. The memory requirement of float is 4 bytes. Like float, we have one more data type called double. Double can also store real numbers, but the range of double is much more than float. See here, it is 308, and its memory requirement is double of float, that is 8 bytes. Now, before I go to the next data type, understand one thing clearly, that int, float, double are called numeric data types. Why they are called numeric data types? Because they basically store some numbers. Now let's go to the next data type, which is called char, where char stands for character. Instead of writing char, you can also write Instead of writing char, you can also write signed char. And why can we write the word signed? As I told you, I'll tell you after some time. Now, the question is what the data type char will store. So the answer is data type char can store any character. Any character which you see on the keyboard of the computer can be stored in data type char. So let's say I write a statement like char x. What I am doing over here is I am creating a variable x of data type char. Now x can store any character from a to z, or small a to small z, or 0 to 9, or any other character like plus, asterisk, exclamation, question mark, and so on. So in very simple words, data type char can store any character. Now, if data type char can store any character, then what is this minus 128 to plus 127? Now that concept is little difficult, please understand this properly. What happens is, every character has an equivalent ASCII value. Let me write that for you. Every character has an equivalent ASCII value. ASCII stands for American Standard Code for Information Interchange. See, what happens is, every character which we see on the keyboard is associated with an equivalent integer value. For example, capital A is associated with 65. Small a is associated with 97. Digit 0 is associated with 48. So when you press the capital A on the keyboard, the computer will read it as 65. Small a will be read as 97, and so on. That way every character is associated with some particular integer value, and that integer value is called its ASCII value. Now, what you see over here is actually the ASCII value minus 128 to plus 127. What exactly this means is that data type char can store any character whose ASCII value is from minus 128 to plus 127. Let me repeat that for you. Data type char can store any character whose ASCII value is between minus 128 to plus 127, and the memory requirement is 1 byte. So these are the 4 basic data types in C language. Now from these 4 basic data types, we can derive other data types in C, and there are 7 other data types. The first one is long int, which can also be written as long signed int or only long. Now what exactly this long int is? Very simple. Over here, instead of writing sum equal to 50, if I write sum equal to 50,000, what do you think? Is this correct or incorrect? It is definitely wrong, because sum is of data type int and int cannot store 50,000. So if you want sum to store a longer integer, what you should do is you should make it of data type long int. As I told you, you can write long int or you can write simply long, no need of writing the word int. So long int basically stores longer integers. This is the range -214 748 3648 to +214 748 3647 and the memory requirement is 4 bytes. The way you have a long int, you have a short int. I don't think that needs any explanation. We normally use a short int when we want to save memory. Next we have long double. Like double, long double can store real numbers. Just pay attention to one thing, that the range is not symmetric on both the sides. On the left side it is -3.4 and on the right side it is +1.1. Memory requirement 10 bytes. Now let's talk about the unsigned data types, what exactly they are. But before that, let's talk about the meaning of the word signed, which we have been ignoring till now. A signed data type is that data type which can store negative numbers. Yes, that's right. A signed data type is that data type which can store negative numbers. So, data type int, data type char, long, short are also called signed data types because they can store negative numbers. On the other hand, unsigned data type can store 0 and positive numbers. Now once you know that, you will easily realize that in unsigned data type you do not need negative numbers. So what the compiler does is, it adds all the numbers which are there on the negative scale to the positive scale, thereby increasing the range on the positive scale. If you don't understand this, let's take a minute to understand this. Now this is the range of signed int, I mean int, that is -32768 to +32767. I can write this like -32768 to -1, comma 0 to +32767. Keep one thing in mind, that these numbers are all negative numbers and negative numbers are not required in unsigned int. So what the compiler will do is, it will take all these numbers and will add them on the positive scale. By the way, how many numbers are these? So these are 32768 numbers which are added on the positive scale. So on the positive scale, the range becomes 0 to 65535. So that is the range of the unsigned int. See carefully that a memory requirement of unsigned int is same as signed int because the total range is also same. It's just that we have taken some numbers from the negative scale and we have put them on the positive scale. Similarly, we derive the range of unsigned char, unsigned long and unsigned short. So these are the other data types of C and these are the 4 basic data types of C. The words long, short, unsigned, signed are sometimes also called specifiers or modifiers. Also keep one small simple thing in your mind. The word long is equivalent to writing long int, but it is not equivalent to writing long double. If you want to use the data type long double, you have to write both the words long as well as double. So that was data types in C. The next C fundamental concept is that of a constant. Now what is a constant? A constant is a program element whose value does not change during program execution. So if I write A equal to B plus 72, in this statement A and B are variables, but 72 is a constant. Now let's study the various categories of constants in C language. Constants are broadly divided into numeric constants and non-numeric constants. A numeric constant will store a number and a non-numeric constant will not store a number. Numeric is further divided into integer constant, real constant. Non-numeric is further divided into single character constant and string constant. So basically we have 4 different types of constants in C. Now one by one let's explore each of them in detail. Let's start with integer constant. Any integer number in C is an integer constant. I repeat, any integer constant in C is an integer constant. So a number like 28, a number like 456, 7295, all of them are integer constants. Now integer constants are also divided into 4 different categories. The first one, decimal integer constant, octal integer constant, hexadecimal integer constant, and one more which I will tell you in a while. Now when I teach you these 4 categories of integer constants, please understand one thing, that all of them are basically integers. And in the next discussion, the word decimal does not mean decimal point. Decimal means 10. So let's understand what is a decimal integer constant. Well, a decimal integer constant can contain any symbol from 0 to 9. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And a decimal integer constant cannot start with a 0. So something like 28, something like 956 is example of decimal integer constant. But something like 0 to 8 is not an example of decimal integer constant because it starts with 0. Then we have an octal integer constant. An octal integer constant can contain 8 symbols from 0 to 7, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. An octal integer constant must start with 0. So something like 0 to 4, 0 to 6, 1 are octal integer constants. But something like 0 to 8, 4 is not an octal integer constant. Why? Because an octal integer constant cannot have the digit 8. It can have only digits from 0 to 7 and it must start with 0. Now what is a hexadecimal integer constant? A hexadecimal integer constant can contain 16 symbols. That means from 0 to 9 and A to F. Here A stands for 10, B11, C12, D13, E14, F15. So A to F is basically 10 to 15. You can write A to F in uppercase or lowercase, that does not matter here. And the hexadecimal integer constant must start with 0x, where x can be in lowercase or uppercase, that is okay. So something like 0x A B 9 5 D is an example of hexadecimal integer constant. But something like 0x95 G A B is not a hexadecimal integer constant. Tell me the reason? Yes, G is not allowed over here. So you can have 0 to 9, A to F, and it should start with 0x. There is one more integer constant which is called unsigned or long integer constant. Now what it is? Very simple. Take example of a number like 500. Does 500 lie in the range of unsigned int? You can go back to the table of data types and you can check this. Once again, does 500 lie in the range of unsigned int? Yes, it does. Does 500 lie in the range of long int? Yes, it does. Because 500 lies in the range of unsigned int, you can write it as 500u, where u stands for unsigned. Because 500 lies in the range of long int, you can write it as 500L, where L stands for long int. In fact, you can also write something like 500 UL, where U is unsigned, L is long. The case does not matter over here. It can be uppercase or lowercase. But if you are writing UL both, the order should be same. You cannot write LU. So these are the types of the integer constants: decimal, octal, hexadecimal, unsigned and long integer constants. Now let's move on to the next numeric constant, which is called real constant. A real constant is a base 10 number having either a decimal point or an exponent or both. In case you are wondering what is a base 10 number, a base 10 number is nothing but a decimal number. Base 10 number means the symbols which you can use should be from 0 to 9. So once again, a real constant is a base 10 number having either a decimal point or an exponent or both. So let's take example of a number like 467.23. 467.23. Is it a base 10 number? Yes. Does it have a decimal point? Yes. Does it have an exponent? No. But it is a real constant. Now let's do one thing. Let's shift the decimal point 2 digits to the right, keeping the value same. So you will get 46723 E stands for exponent, minus 2. E stands for exponent, so this is into 10 raised to minus 2. Is this a base 10 number? By the way, when I ask you is this a base 10 number, look at only this portion, not the exponent. So this is definitely a base 10 number. Does it have a decimal point? No. Does it have an exponent? Yes. So I will say this is also a real constant. Sorry. Now let's shift the decimal point 2 digits to the left in this number, keeping the value same. So it will be 4.6723 E plus 2. By the way, the plus symbol over here is optional and you can even give E in lowercase, that's okay. So now you know one thing, this is a base 10 number, it has a decimal point, it has an exponent, so I will say this is a real constant. So real constant is a base 10 number having either a decimal point or an exponent or both. Now let's go to the next category of constant called single character constant. In short, we'll call it a character constant. Now how do you define this? A character constant is any character enclosed in single quotes, enclosed in apostrophes. I repeat, a character constant is any character enclosed in single quotes. So, you may have an alphabet B enclosed in single quote. You may have the digit 8 enclosed in single quote. You may have the symbol hash enclosed in single quote. So, these are character constants. Now, please understand one thing, that every character constant has an equivalent ASCII value. I hope you remember what is the ASCII value. An ASCII value is the associated integer value of the character. So, characters A to Z have ASCII value 65 to 90. Small a to small z 97 to 122, and 0 to 9 have ASCII values 48 to 57. Please understand one thing, all the characters, whether it is the question mark, exclamation, all characters have an ASCII value, but these ASCII values are the most popular ones. Now let's talk about a very special character constant which is called escape sequence. Now what is an escape sequence? An escape sequence is a sequence of two symbols, of which the first symbol is always a backslash followed by any other symbol like n or /t or /0 and so on. I repeat. An escape sequence is a sequence of two symbols, of which the first symbol is a backslash followed by some other symbol like n, like t, and so on. Now, these two symbols together represent only one character constant. So, what you should understand is /n is not two characters. It is a single character called new line character. /t is not two characters. It is a single character which represents a tab key of the keyboard. That way you have many escape sequences, like you have /0, you can have // and so on. Do remember one thing, every escape sequence is a special character used in special situation. Now let's go to the easiest constant, and that is the string constant. A string constant is a sequence of 0, 1 or more than one characters enclosed in double quotes, double quotation marks. So, you may have 0 characters enclosed in double quotes. You may have only one character enclosed in double quotes. You may have multiple characters enclosed in double quotes. What you see over here are examples of string constants. So that is the easiest. 0, 1 or more than one characters enclosed in double quotes. Now, once you understand all the constants, let's understand a very important concept. Now, I write three things over here: 2, 2, and 2. Please listen to this very carefully. Now, for a layman, for a non-programmer, these three quantities are one and the same. A layman will consider each two as same. But these three things are not same for a programmer. This 2 is called number 2, integer 2, whose numeric value is 2. Whereas this 2 is called character 2, whose numeric value is 50. Now what I mean when I say numeric value is 50, first of all, please pay attention to this character 2 and the character 2, and the numeric value of a character is its ASCII value. So 0 is 48, so that way 2 will be 49. Anyway, so now what do I mean when I say numeric value is 2 or numeric value is 50? In a C program, let me write it here. In a C program, if I write 2 plus 3, the answer will be 5. Simple. But in a C program, if I write character 2 plus 3, the answer will be 53 and not 5. Because when you write character 2, when you use arithmetic operation with a character, the compiler will consider the equivalent ASCII value of the character. So that's why we say the numeric value of character 2 is its ASCII value 50. Now as far as string is concerned, strings do not have any numeric value. So if we write something like this in a program, string 2 plus 3, the compiler will report an error. So please keep one thing in mind, this is number 2, integer 2, this is character 2 and this is string 2. So that was constants in C language. Let's study a very important C fundamental called declaration. A declaration is a statement which associates a variable or a group of variables with one particular data type. So, you see a variable sum over here associated with data type int. You see variables a, b, c over here associated with data type float. So, these two statements are example of declaration. When we write this statement, we are telling the compiler to create a variable sum of data type int. It should store integer. We are telling the compiler to create variables ABC, and ABC should store real numbers, floating point numbers. So, a declaration is a very important statement. You will have to use it in all the programs which you are going to do. Now, a declaration is sometimes also called variable declaration or type declaration, because you are declaring variables and you are declaring the data type of the variables. A very important concept which you should know over here is that whenever the compiler comes across any declaration, it does the work of memory allocation. I repeat, memory allocation. Now what exactly that means? I hope you remember this is the diagram of computer memory where each location is called a byte. What happens is when the compiler sees any declaration, it will allocate memory for the variable which is declared. So hope you remember that one integer takes 2 bytes of memory. The moment compiler sees this statement, the compiler allocates 2 bytes of memory for variable sum. And now whatever value you will give to variable sum will be stored in these 2 bytes. So if I write a statement sum equal to 15, then 15 will be stored in these 2 bytes. So that is what is memory allocation. Now along with declaration, another important subtopic is initialization. Now what initialization means? First of all, what is this statement called? Declaration. Initialization means giving a value to the variable right at the time of declaration. So, let's say in this statement I write equal to 0. This means that now I am doing declaration and initialization. I am declaring the variable sum and I am also initializing it to 0. I am declaring variables ABC and I am also initializing B to 1.2. But A is only declared, not initialized. So initialization means giving a value to the variable at the time of declaration. To understand this better, take example of these two statements. Int sum, and below that I will write sum equal to 0. Now, these two statements are not an example of declaration and initialization. They are called declaration and assignment. See, what you should understand over here is that in this example, I am giving a value to sum in the next statement, not in the declaration statement. So, when I do that, it is called assignment, not declaration. So the concept is very simple. If you give a value to the variable before the semicolon ends, it is initialization, otherwise it is assignment. Hope you understand that. Now, let's also talk about something called garbage value. Let's say I write a statement int sum, and after that, let me write it over here. Let's say I write a statement int a semicolon, but I don't assign any value to A. If I declare A, but if I don't assign any value to A, then the compiler by default assigns it garbage value. Now what is garbage value? A garbage value is any unpredictable value. So if you don't give any value to A, the compiler will give any value to A in the range of int. So it could be 96, 1248, 447, anything. So garbage value is any unpredictable value. So that was declaration and initialization for you. The next topic today is symbolic constant. Now in order to understand this topic, let's take one example program. Let's say we are supposed to write a program to find areas of 100 different geometrical figures. So I start with hash include stdio.h, then I start with void main. Then I will ask then I will declare some variables, and after the declaration I will ask the user for some input. So for declaration and input I have simply given some ... ellipsis. These statements are not relevant, so I just gave ... Then I will start with the calculation of area of 100 different geometrical figures. So this statement calculates area of the circle. This may calculate area of some other geometrical figure, and that way we have 100 statements calculating areas of 100 figures. So I have statement from A1 till A100. Now in these statements, do you see any constant which occurs again and again? That's right, it's 3.14. Now what we can do is, whenever we have a constant which occurs again and again, we can use the feature of symbolic constant. So after this statement I may write hash define space pi 3.14. So what I am doing is I am defining pi to have the value 3.14, and then wherever you see 3.14 over there I can simply write pi and pi. So this pi is called symbolic constant, and this entire hash defined statement is called macro or macro definition. Symbolic constant, and this statement is called macro or macro definition. By writing pi over here, instead of writing 3.14, what we have done is we have made our program a little more readable, little more presentable. And moreover, later on, if you want to change the value of pi to, let's say, 3.141593, then I need to make the change only in this statement. Now, there are two rules which you should understand over here. Rule number 1. By writing pi over here, what I have done is I have made the statement more readable, more presentable. Now you need to understand two rules over here. Rule number 1. Once we write the hash defined statement, after that the value of pi cannot be changed. So within the void main or anywhere else, I cannot write the statement something like pi equal to 3.96 or whatever. If I try to change the value of pi, the compiler will report an error. So that's a mistake, that cannot be done. Another rule is that a hash defined statement can be written anywhere but before the first usage. That means if you are using pi over here for the first time, then you can write the statement here but not here. But ideally we always put the hash defined statement in the beginning along with the hash include statements. Now let's take one more example of symbolic constant. Now a small program where I write hash define begin opening brace. Now can you tell me in this statement who is the symbolic constant? The symbolic constant is begin and its value is pi. And its value is opening brace. So you should not have one misconception in your mind that this value should always be a number. No, that's a misconception. This value can be anything. Now, if I write this way, over here instead of opening brace, I can write begin. Can you take a guess? What am I going to write over here? So over here, I'll write hash define end closing brace. I'm sure now you know over here I will be writing end. Now answer the question. On this board you see a total of how many symbolic constants? 3. Pi, begin, end. See carefully, all the symbolic constants are given in uppercase. Giving the symbolic constant in uppercase is not a rule but a tradition. So even if you give pi in lowercase, it's valid. Now, after symbolic constant, we'll study one more similar topic which is called qualifier const. Now let's take example of this statement. Float pi equal to 3.141593. Can you answer in one or two words what is the statement called? This statement is called declaration and initialization. In this statement we are declaring pi of data type float and then we are initializing it with this value. After writing this statement, you can change the value of pi. Because pi is a variable. But let's say you don't want to change the value of pi. So what you can do is, before writing float, you can write one keyword const. The keyword const tells the compiler that this is the value of pi and it should remain constant. So now if somebody tries to change the value of pi, the compiler will report an error. And finally, the keyword const and the data type can be given in any order. So I could have also written float const pi equal to 3.141593. So the data type and const can be interchanged. So that was symbolic constant and qualifier const for you.